Hello, and welcome to another bite-sized marketing session with me, Miles from Miles Marketing. And this week's exciting topic is how to set up on your own post-corporate career. Basically, I'm going to give you my experience when I left corporate life about 3 years ago now, and really sort of hopefully give you some hints and tips if you are indeed thinking of moving away from corporate life and starting up your own business. But first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. Next week, we've got our special guest for May. David Jenkins is going to come on and he's going to be talking all about telesales, and it's about making telesales work for your business. He's got a 7-point plan which will give you a real insight into telesales and how to make it work for your business. Just because the world has gone digital crazy doesn't mean that the old methods don't work. Okay, so tune in next week, 12:30 on the 16th, to hear what David has to say. Right, let's jump into it. As always, pop any questions that you may have in the chat, and I'll do my very best to answer them. Full disclosure, this is a pre-recorded. Unfortunately, I'm out with clients today, so I can't be here in person. But as always, my commitment to you is to bring you a bite-sized marketing video every single Tuesday at 12:30. Right, so how do you set up on your own post corporate career? Now, full disclosure, I suppose there's many ways to start a business. Okay, I'm sort of angling this at someone who's going to start a consultancy or a personal services business, and really I'm basing it on my experience with a little bit of added common sense, I'm guessing. Right, so throughout this I've highlighted what I'll call some light bulb moments. There's been plenty of those across the last 3 years. And hopefully by you hearing these things from me now, it'll mean that you don't make either the same mistakes or you've got a better understanding of going into this with your eyes open. Because I'm going to say from the very start that I was probably under some kind of what's the word? Delusion that it would be really easy. I mean, how hard could it be? I've spent, the best part of 30 years working for some of the largest brands in the world, and I'm very proficient at what I do. So why wouldn't people want to engage with me for my services? Well, plenty of reasons, right? But whether it was just my what's the word? Arrogant, whatever you want to call it, my inflated opinion of myself and the work that I've been doing, or whether or not this is something else that people that work for large corporates actually think. At the end of the day, working for a large international company and working for yourself is like chalk and cheese. And I think that I would encourage people not to rush into it without taking, full stock of what's about to happen. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of comfort about having the big arm around your shoulder in terms of corporate life versus no arms around you and you having to sink or swim, being, I don't want to say it being an entrepreneur, but running your own business. So the first thing I've got to say to you is this: do not rush into it. Whilst you've got your corporate job and your corporate salary and everything that goes around that, the company car, the mobile phone, the laptop, etc., take your time to plan your move. Get some clarity around what it is you're going to offer. You may offer personal services around what you specialize in. You may have invented the latest widget, or there's a gap in the market that you think you can fill. or you're going to, create your own startup in competition, maybe to perhaps the corporate that you currently work for. Any of those sort of options, I would say, please take your time, because actually sometimes the perception of what you think is out there is not actually the reality. A lot of people will blow smoke as well, and suggest how wonderful you are, and you ask your mum what she thinks and she's going to think that it's the best thing since sliced bread. Actually get some independent views on what it is you're about to offer. But do the sort of the hard graft, start the planning stage, start really sort of digging deep in terms of what it is that you're going to offer. Think about your business and think about the cliche, right? The Simon's your why, right? But think about what is going to make you different to all of the other consultants out there, all of the widget sellers out there. What will you do for people, and why will they want to engage with you and your services versus others? Okay, so really sort of spend some time working on your why, and maybe this is the ideal opportunity for you to set yourself up with a business coach. Okay, now all top performers have a coach. All right, whether you're in sport or you're in business, having someone who's impartial to bounce off is a really, really good idea. So if you're going to do anything at the start, I would say when you've got that sort of initial idea, engage with a business coach, because it'll be the best money you ever spent. Here's the sort of the light bulb moment, right? It's just because you've had a successful corporate career, it does not automatically mean that you're going to be a great business person or a fantastic entrepreneur or a great employer or provider of services or a consultant. It's not a given. Sorry to share that. Sorry to share that news with you. One of the first things you want to do is you want to look at your current contract of employment, because they're more than likely, especially if you work for a corporate, there's going to be a clause in there that says that you're not allowed to have another job. So there'll be a non-compete clause within there. There'll be exclusivity clauses in there, or restricted covenants, whatever they want to be called. But look into that first, because the moment that you embark on the social media to perhaps dip your toe in the water, you might find that you get unstuck because there is a legal restriction placed upon you. So please, that didn't happen to me, right? I took redundancy, so that was all fine. But think about, actually, it did happen to me, because when I was looking to start out on my own, there was a big, long, protracted divorce, if you like, where the company was going to be sold and it took a long time to sell. But within my contract, there was a clause that said I couldn't have another job, and I had to approach the board and ask them to change that in order for me to sort of start working things out on my own. So there may be ways around it, but look, please look it up. Try and be objective about your skills, if you like, and definitely play to your strengths. It's a little bit old-fashioned, but maybe sit down and do a classic SWOT analysis. Do that sort of, do the background research to pull into a wider business plan. Now, I'm all for scribbling down plans on the back of a fag packet, right? But pulling together a cohesive business plan where you've really analyzed what you're going to be doing and the services that you offer and the need in the marketplace that you're going to supply and who your target market is and all of the other fun stuff there is so important. It'll really help you work out what you can do on your own and what you'll need others for, because all right, you may supply consultancy service, but at some stage you're probably going to need a third party to help you. So think about, how you're going to surround yourself with people to fulfill those things. Set yourself some sort of constructive goals, maybe use some SMART goals in terms of how you're going to measure the performance of your business. Here's another sort of light bulb moment. Be ready to go through all of that planning prior to you breaking out on your own. It's so important that you try and think about all of the options that are available, because believe me, there'll be others that are thrown up that you've never considered. But try at least to have thought the whole thing out properly, and don't sort of do things on a whim. You're likely just to have sort of one main chance, if you like, of going alone, mainly because if you fail, you don't have another option really than to go back to being employed and working for somebody. So, breaking away from corporate life, getting set up on your own, I'm not going to say hard and fast, you've only got one opportunity to do it, but money, we'll come on to money in a second, but that's probably going to be the main thing that means that you fail, right? So get that planning stage right. The last thing I'm going to say, and this is a bit of a light bulb moment, is with all of the planning in the world, please try and be flexible and have an open mind to change or to deviate from the set plan, because opportunities are going to come your way that you've never thought of. All right. You may stumble across a gap in the market, and you need to be flexible enough to fill it. Okay. So just be mindful of that. Now, let's talk money, because this is, in my opinion, the most important thing about breaking away from the comfort of being paid every single month to the discomfort, and it is discomfort, of not knowing where your next monies are going to come from. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be able to live corporate life, go into a job where you've already got a big customer set up that's going to sort of start your income going, then fantastic. All right. But let's say that you're leaving it completely cold and you're having to generate the business. You want to have about 12 months money to pay your bills. And that'll be like to pay your personal bills, but also to pay for the company bills for about 12 months. Because again, as much as you think, and this is what happened to me, as much as I thought that people would want to engage with me, and I did pick up a few customers, right? But by a long chalk, they did not cover my exes. All right. And, to think that you're going to go into business and be able to pay yourself from day one, I would suggest, unless you're very lucky, think again, because it's just as much as you can do to keep your head above water as it is to be sort of paying yourself. So, we've all heard the phrase, an overnight success takes about 10 years. Things do take time. You can have really positive meetings with people and they never come back to you. They completely ghost you. You've got to be prepared for the lag in terms of monies coming in. All right. 12 months money is what I would say you want to be thinking of having in the bank before you start on your own. Talking about money, I would say in terms of your suppliers, try and pay your suppliers promptly. Now, depends who you speak to, right? Some people would say, well, drag out their terms, pay them after 30 days or whatever their terms are. I would say think about these other suppliers, most of them are going to be entrepreneurs like yourself, and most of them need that money to come in terms of cash flow. So if you do have the ability to be able to pay your customers when those invoices come in, they are far more likely to jump on your work when you ring up than they are for somebody who perhaps leaves it 30 days before they pay them. So if you can pay them promptly, the other good, for me anyway, the other reason why I pay my suppliers promptly is because otherwise I bloody forget, right? And there's a little bit of planning that has to go into you being organized enough to go back for invoices that have been sent to you a month ago and actually pay them, right? So for me, things come in, I get them paid, and then they're done. Okay, but that's only because I've got myself into a position now where there's money in the bank with the business. All right. So in terms of how much money do you need? Well, look, it'll all depend on the type of business that you are embarking on, right? But what I would say to you is this, you've got to think about, if you're starting from scratch, you need to get some branding done. All right. That's going to cost you in terms of the creation of that. Things like letterheads, right? Business cards, the company stationery, software tools. So things like Microsoft Office now, you have to pay monthly subscriptions based on that. There are some bits and bobs you can buy out there. But look, software subscriptions, calendar subscriptions, tools like Canva, if you're going to be creating artwork for your social media. If you're going to be hitting the ground running, perhaps you want to get some accountancy software sorted out, maybe a CRM system that you don't want to use the basics. There's plenty out there that can suck your money up. You're going to have to pay an accountant at some stage, and we'll talk about how important that is. But if you're going to set up a limited company, you need to pay money to set that up. Things like a website, right? You need to pay to get your website up, and these can be quite expensive, especially if you're integrating a payment gateway into your website. Things like SEO, getting you off the ground, right? It takes 6 to 8 months to get any traction on SEO, right? So don't think that people are going to find you just because you whack a website out there on Wix. It doesn't happen. You've got to think about insurances, limited liability insurance. You can't be a consultant and take on work for someone and give them advice and they lose a lot of money on the back of your advice. So you need some insurance in place. And again, that is going to cost you. Things like an office. Are you going to rent an office? Do you need an office? Do you need a shop? Do you need facilities to store things? So on and so forth. Think about this and think about hardware, PCs, phones, kit, all of the above, depending on exactly what it is that you're offering. Even like branded tops, and mugs, they're not free. And likewise, this bit of software here, right? That ain't free either. So think about adding all of these things up in terms of a minimum budget that you're going to need for your business. Now, here's a really good light bulb moment. Find yourself a good accountant and have a proper conversation with a good accountant. If you don't know one, I know a couple of really good ones. So please send me a message and I will forward you their details. But there are lots of conversations that you need to have with them because it may be right, it may be wrong, right? But, things like, do you need to set up a limited company or can you be a sole trader? Well, that depends on what sort of business you're offering and what sort of turnover you're going to be having. VAT, should you be VAT registered from the off? Well, the threshold is £85,000 turnover on any calendar year, and that's sort of rolling. That's not on your business year. So are you going to be taking more than that? There is more that you have to do when you're VAT registered. However, when you're not VAT registered, then you can be looked on as not being large enough, right? To have got VAT registered. So, my business has gone through the transition and I now am VAT registered, which I see as a badge of honor, right? But that does mean that you have to charge VAT on everything that you do. However, you can claim VAT back. But speak to the accountant about whether or not to do that pre you hitting that turnover. And paying yourself a salary or not, right? It's a bloody minefield. And I would suggest that probably in the first few months, maybe in the first year, you're not going to pay yourself a salary because you may not have enough money coming in to do that. There are lots of different ways. If you have a limited company, you can pay yourself a salary and then you can pay yourself in dividends to reduce the amount of tax that you pay overall. So getting that advice from a professional, from an accountant, is absolutely crucial. Right, here's another big one. Will you or do you have a network outside of your corporate life? Because for me, coming from the safety of the big bookmakers and 3 of the biggest bookmakers in the world, if I needed any resource, I had the very best resource at my fingertips. Well, when I left that environment, well, I had nobody. I had nobody for HR advice. I had nobody for tax advice. I had nobody for anything, right? For anything at all. So very much one of the first things that, I didn't want to continue within the gambling arena, right? So I set up my company and started working completely outside of the industry that I'd worked in for 20 years, right? So I had to set up everything on my own from scratch. So think about your network there. Think about when you step away from that corporate career, what sort of support are you going to have when you're out on your own? And there are plenty of ways that you can go about building up your market, your support network. And one of the main ones is networking, right? It's about, and this is something that you don't do really within corporate life because you've got an instant network. All right, you might sort of, you might be friendly with one of the competitors or know people within your industry. You see them at trade shows and stuff. But as far as having a functional network that you can tap into to help you with your business, do you really have one at the moment through your corporate connections? And my statement, I suppose, for me is that once I left, I didn't have them. So I needed to go out and find them. And I did that through networking and through networking events. Not all. I mean, I do have some connections that I've brought from my corporate career, but the vast majority of my third parties that I use, my special services, I found those by going out and networking and, meeting and greeting and, kissing a lot of frogs, right? So think about that. Think about your network and build that into your plan. Here's another little light bulb moment. Don't underestimate the education that you get whilst working for a corporate. Now, I don't just mean the CPD stuff, the training courses that you get sent on. They are great, but it's that sort of learning via osmosis that you get because you work with fantastic people when you work for large companies. You're working with the best. So don't underestimate how deep your knowledge is and what a difference you can make to those that haven't had that education. Okay, one of the big things for me is that the majority of my work I find quite easy because of the training and education I've had over the last 30 years from some of the best people in business, and I'm able to have proper conversations with my clients and be able to advise them because of that education I've had and they haven't. And that's how I can make a difference. So really think about what you can bring to the party. So I think you should try and build, whilst you're working for the corporate, try and get out there and talk to other business owners and find out what they've been doing. There's there's plenty of work out there for us all. Some of my best connections are other marketeers, right? We all well, I say not all of us, some of us maybe not, but I certainly understand that there's enough out there for us to sort of share around. And you never know when someone comes to me and asks me to do a job that I can't do or I don't specialize in, and I know somebody else who does. So think about really establishing those networks and the sort of I scratch your back, I scratch your back, you scratch mine type thing. Okay. How are you going to go about building a network? Well, think about trade shows, going to the trade shows, meeting and greeting, asking the questions, going to structured networking events. There are so many, there's a Chamber of Commerce in your local area. It costs you a very small amount of money to go along there. And you can actually talk to other small business owners that may well either be your peers or be your customers at some stage, right? You should perhaps share your knowledge if you're a consultant. Here's one of the sort of the scary things and one of the nice things about being self-employed. One of the big things that I miss is every month my salary being put into my bank account pretty much regardless as to whether I had performed or earned that money, if you like, that month. When you work for yourself, I can tell you that the reward you get when you send an invoice out and somebody pays that invoice, like you never forget your first invoice when it was paid. Oh, it really is euphoric. Yes, it's bloody stressful. Yes, every month you have to keep grafting. You have to keep sort of the lead funnel full. But I can assure you that, earning your money has never been so sweet as the money that you earn when you work for yourself. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into how to set up on your own post-corporate career. I'm so open to having conversations with any of you that are out there in corporate land and are thinking of breaking away. To hopefully not make the mistakes that I made. When I left 3.5 years ago to set up on my own, it was a real bad time, right? Because we just entered COVID and lockdown, and I had a little bit of a false start there, I suppose, because I wasn't able to get up and running. But, I managed to do it. I had enough money in the bank, if you like, to be able to tide me over. I polished what I was offering. I was flexible with what I offered, and I took opportunities as they came along. So here are my top 3 tips for you on how to set up on your own post-corporate career. First thing is take your time. Pull a business plan together. Make sure you've identified your target market and the USP of what you offer. Plan that migration away from corporate life to working on your own. The more you can do whilst you're still being employed, the better. But, be aware that you may be contracted not to have a second job. Save up your money. Start saving now. Start building up that reserve, because the moment you start working for yourself, at the very least, you've got like another month until you get any money in, even if you hit the ground running, right? So think about having enough money in the bank, 6 to 12 months worth to tide you through and to pay for the setup of the business. And then the last tip is that you need to build this support network around you. It's so important that you've got that infrastructure, that network around you to help your business grow, even if it's just having a good accountant, or just finding someone to offer you the business insurance, or just finding a designer to design your logos, or just right? Think about that. Look, what more can I say? I will never look back with negativeness over my corporate career. I loved every single second of it. Part of me wishes that I still work for Adidas as I did in my 20s, but look, I don't. That's how life happens. And would I have broken away from corporate life sooner if I'd realized what I know now? Yeah, I would have. I would have. But would I have been ready? Maybe not. Who knows, right? We'll never know. We only can, do what we can, right? I'm here. I'm here now. I'm over 3 years into my business. I'm within profit, which is great. I've still got a lot to do. And I'm really enjoying working with my clients. Like the joy, the literal joy that I get when we put a marketing plan in place and it bears fruit. I can't tell you how much it sort of fills me with joy. Okay. So there we go. If you're thinking about it, please get in touch. My phone number's here. Send us a WhatsApp. Let's have a chat. Any questions that you may have, hopefully I'll be able to answer. So until next time, when we're going to be talking with David about telesales and we're going to be looking at his top 7 tips. Right, been a busy one. Ta-ta for now.